Hey, welcome to Journey. Y'all give it up for Matt. Come on. Yes. That's the way to start a service with a bass solo. Hey, I want to pray for us, and then I want to invite you to stand with me as we sing. Would you go ahead and stand with me now, and we're going to sing some songs to God. I just want to pray for us right now. God, thank you so much. We're going to do in this service. We are so grateful for your love and grace, and it's evidenced by the way that you woke us up this morning. And there were some people who planned on waking up today and they didn't. But here we are. So no matter how our morning was, no matter how difficult it was, no matter how we were feeling, would you remind us of the gift that we have today? And that gift is today. And we've come to meet with you. So speak to us, change us, shape us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise, treasures that fail, never enough. Then you came along and put me back together. And every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Sing with me. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all. You still call me friend. I was the God of the mountain, it's the God of the valley. There's not a place for mercy and grace will find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You live beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty to ashes. You turn praise in the garden. You turn bones into armies. The one who cares, the only one who cares. turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who cares. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who cares. You're the only one who cares. You're the only one who
Good morning. Welcome to Journey. You guys can go ahead and have a seat. Man, it is great to be with you guys this morning. Last week was Easter. It was a phenomenal Sunday, and we went right into spring break for many of us. So it's good to be back. I was in Kentucky last week, doing some really cool things there. And yes, there are cool things to do in Kentucky. By the way, if you don't have kids, a great reason to have kids is that you get another spring break. So you lost out when you got out of high school, but if you have kids, nobody looks at you weird if you take time off for spring break if you have children. If you don't have children and you're taking time off for spring break, it's kind of weird, but we don't have to talk about that today. So hey, welcome to Journey. We are excited you guys are with us today. I want to let you know, if you're here for the very first time, we are excited that you are here with us this morning checking out. In fact, let's give it up for anybody who's here for the very first time. We're honored to have you with us today. We have a free gift for you and anybody who hasn't chosen to take that yet, and it is our app. We have a free app that you can find in our app store. You can actually scan the QR code on the screen behind me, and you can get that app for free. It's got all the things you need to know about Journey in there, when we're doing events, how to join a serving team, how to join a group, all kinds of cool stuff. Make sure that you download that today. And if it's your first time, there's a connect form in there. We would love if you could fill that out. Connect with us because we want to connect with you, find out about your journey, about your story. And if you do that, stop by in the lobby area afterwards. We have a free gift for you just for filling out that form and being with us today. Speaking of giving gifts, one thing that we celebrate every Sunday, and actually every single day if you're a Christian, is the idea that Jesus came as God's gift to humanity to save us from sin, and so that we can restore that relationship with God. And we get to mirror that every Sunday through giving our tithes and our offering. A tithe is 10% of our income, and an offering is anything that's past that 10%. But we do this as Christians to remind us of all kinds of things, but that's one of the things that we remind ourselves of, is that Jesus was this free gift for us. So we want to be like God, we want to return, we want to give generously. So you can do that in multiple ways. You can do that in the app that I mentioned before. You can also drop it off in the black toaster, or you can text the number on the screen behind me. But just know that when you give and when you live generously, you're just being a little bit more like God. And that's the ultimate goal, is to get closer and closer and closer to being more like Him every single day. And when it comes to this idea of giving gifts and the fact that God gave His one and only Son, Jesus, to come here and save us, I think this is a message that resonates with a lot of us. You know your story best. You know what you've got going on inside of your heart, inside of your mind. And everybody has different struggles. Everybody has different things that they deal with and they go through in life. And sometimes you know them really well, and sometimes they surprise you. And all of a sudden you feel like, man, I just wish that somebody could save me. And we know that Jesus can be that person. But as we play this next song, I want you to sit and listen to these words, because I think these words resonate with a lot of us, where we've been, where we are, maybe some things that are down the road for us. So please stay seated as we listen to this next song.
Somebody save me from myself. I spent so long living in hell. They say my lifestyle is bad for my health. It's the only thing seems to help. All of this drinking is hopeless, but feel like all that I need. Something inside of me is broken. I hold on to anything that sets me free. I'm a lost cause. Baby, don't waste your time on me. I'm so damaged beyond repair. Life has shattered my hopes and my dreams. I'm a lost cause. Baby, don't waste your time on me. I'm so damaged beyond repair. Life has shattered my hopes and my dreams. Oh Lord. What if the night sky was missing the moon? There's no shooting stars to use wishing on me. All of my sorrows, I just wash them down. It's the only peace I've ever found. All of this smoking and drinking is hopeless, but I feel like it's all that I need. Something inside of me's broken. I hold to anything that sets me free. I'm a lost cause. Baby, don't waste your time on me. I'm so damaged beyond repair. Life has shattered my hopes and my dreams. I'm a lost cause. Baby, don't waste your time on me. I'm so damaged beyond repair. Life has shattered my hopes and my dreams.
When sin infected the world like a ravenous cancer, it started with its crowning glory. What is most precious to the Creator, humanity, who the Trinity declared to be made in their image. The very reflection of God Himself was darkened by the menacing clutches of sin. Sin that ravaged everything in its sight, including the once limitless connection between God and His people. Destroying the bridge that united a holy family and fractured it into pieces, scattered to the ends of the earth. Leaving them wandering blind, wreaking havoc as they grope their way back onto a straight and narrow path. Amidst this mess, He longs to love through the dirt and shame, with hopeful eyes and caring gaze, tear-stained and rugged. He looks right into the heart of you, the real you, the one He imagined when He carefully knit you in your mother's womb, the glorious image of Himself that He planted into eternity. A soul so brilliant He wept with joy at the mere thought of you. And when you traveled through His cosmic thought into the physical reality of living on earth, He wept again as He sent you off into the world, because this world has mutated into a distorted counterfeit of the original design. And because He wants only His absolute best for you, He decided to make a way to come home. A way for the glorious perfection of heaven to be manifested in the here and now. Through the sacrifice and resurrection of His Son, the outstretched hands of Jesus extends the invitation of salvation. And this miraculous promise starts when you finally give God the one thing holding you back, your sin. the sin that you hide deep in the recesses of your heart, the sin that weighs so heavy on your shoulders you wonder if you'll be crushed under its weight, the sin that sentences you to death, a death that drags you away from the loving arms of your Heavenly Father. The sin that this enemy wishes to be your curse, God in His mercy has now transformed into the very gateway to your blessing. The unexpected key that unlocks the freedom of true life. This key will fling the doors of heaven wide open. And like the king to the prodigal, He rushes to welcome you home joyfully, without reservation. Your past sin and internal conflict are then enveloped in His redeeming transformation. If you would only accept His invitation to salvation when you give up your sin to the one who longs to take it from you, then you will be forgiven and sheltered in the grace and strength of His holy name.
Yeah, would y'all give it up one more time for Carrie? Tim covering a Jelly Roll song. Yeah. Hey, I want to tell you a little bit about me. There's something that if you don't know this about me, you'll find out pretty quickly. But it's something that is it's a strength for me. It's a gift for sure, and it's something though that some people really love about me, and then there's some people who hate me because of this. And some people love it because it challenges them. It helps them discover the more that they were made for. Like when I operate in this and when I do this, like it helps people. But then there's some people who don't like me because of it, who hate me because of it, because they misunderstand this thing about me, or they maybe I come across as a jerk, or they just I don't know. And this thing is like I said, it's a gift, it's a good thing, but for a long time I buried it. I was scared to really live in this thing because for years I just operated from insecurity, and I didn't want to make it so that people didn't like me, because I want people to like me. Can you relate? Maybe you want people to like you too. Like I wanted people to like me, and if I did this, and maybe they wouldn't like me, and so I would bury it. And I've recently just found this security in myself where, like, I don't care what you think about me, right? And I mean, I don't say that in a bad way, but I mean, I don't care what you think about me. And I've gotten okay with that, and so that's allowed me to live in this strength that I have that really makes me effective. It makes me who I am. And you know, to tell you about this thing, I'll tell you a story, and maybe you can pick up on what it is, this thing I'm talking about. Back in 2004, 2003, I was at Roanoke Bible College. It's now called Mid-Atlantic Christian University, but I was a student there, and I was studying to be a youth minister. And so I graduated from there in 2005. I got a degree in Bible, 3 different minors. I minored in youth ministry, I minored in preaching, I minored in counseling. But throughout my time in Bible college, I did some different internships at different churches, and around 2003, 2004, a friend of mine, Chris, who was in school with me, he invited me to come check out his church, which was here in Virginia Beach. It's called Forefront. And so I went to Chris's church, Forefront, and I had never been to a church like this before. Like, it was amazing. Like, I never thought church could be like this. When I went to this church, they covered a Metallica song. Like, in church, and I didn't even know you could do that. We just covered a song by Jelly Roll, Save Me. You can look it up, but they covered this Metallica song, and then there was a point during the service where Paco, the disco gorilla, came dancing down the aisle, tossing candy out to people, and he came down to his theme song, Play That Funky Music by Wild Cherry. And so, just so you understand, Paco, the disco gorilla, for clarity, wasn't a real gorilla, but it was a guy in a gorilla suit who came dancing down the aisle during this church service. And I was like, what is going on? How can this happen in church? It was amazing. And then the songs that they sang sounded more like rock songs. And then when Vince, who was the pastor, he got up to preach, like, it was so relatable and so relevant, and he was funny, and I was like, this is amazing. I'd never been to a church like this before. And I was hooked. And so I went back the next week and the next week, and I went for about 3 or 4 weeks. And I I was able to get a time to meet up with Vince, who he was the founding pastor of the church, one of the founding pastors of the church, and also the lead pastor at the time. But Chris set up this lunch with him, and so I met up with him, and I remember telling him during this lunch, I looked at him, I said, I'm going to be the youth minister here. And he just laughed at me. He just laughed at me like, are you kidding me? Like, you just started coming to this church, it's only been 3 or 4 weeks, who are you? No way. But I told him, I said, no, really, I'm going to be the youth minister here. And sure enough, when I graduated from Bible college, I did a year-long internship at Forefront, and they hired me in 2006. I was a youth minister there from 2006 to 2012. And so, did you catch it? Did you catch the thing that I was talking about? Here, how about this? Instead of telling you, I'm gonna read what Vince wrote about me, and maybe you can catch it in that. Vince wrote this book called Guerrilla Lovers, and he actually wrote about me in this book. It was published in 2010, and he writes about me in chapter 15. The title of the chapter is called Lipstick Graffiti. But here's what he says. See if you can pick up this strength that I have that some people love and some people don't. He says this, one of my favorite friends is James. I like James for a lot of reasons, but mostly because he's entertaining, and I love to be entertained. One of the amusing things about James is that he's one of those guys, if you want to ask, are you aware that you're white? My daughter at the age of 5 would occasionally strut around our house like Shaft, going, I'm James, yo man, what up, what up, what up, and throwing peace signs in every direction. Now again, this was back in 2010, I'm a different person now. One time a bunch of us were at a baseball game and James made some theological point he considered deep, and then said, you know, I have been called the modern day C.S. Lewis. Everyone started laughing and James protested, I have. When pressed, James finally told us who gave him this moniker. He did. He calls himself a modern day C.S. Lewis. At his wedding, James wore a tux jacket that went all the way down to his ankles. It was a totally Matrix wedding. Another time, I was with a bunch of people from my church feeding homeless people. I was with this homeless guy who was about my age and in some way seemed to have his act together and have reasonable social skills, but something was very sad about his eyes. They had no life in them. I was trying to figure out how to start a conversation with him when James looked him in the eye and said, so dude, what's your drug of choice? What the? But the homeless guy sighed and told James his drug of choice. James started boldly asking questions. When did you start doing that? Why did you start? Why can't you stop? Do you have a job? What if we found someone who would receive your paycheck and only give you funds when you need them to make sure you didn't blow the whole thing? And I was just staring at James, entertained, but also a little in awe. And then I looked over at the homeless guy and he was agreeing and nodding, and I'm pretty sure I saw a little flicker of something, excitement, hope, life, soul in his eyes. It was like just through asking a few questions, James gave him back a hint of his humanity. Then he goes on to say what he wrote about me in the book. I introduced him to the art of Banksy, and that's what the rest of the chapter is about, graffiti lipstick. And by the way, Irene designed the cover of this book. Irene is my wife, graphic designer, amazing. But did you catch what I want to tell you in that chapter? See, the thing that makes me me, that makes me effective, the thing that people love about me and some people hate about me is what you just saw in that chapter. This guy who was homeless was choosing to do something that wasn't serving him. And I saw that and I said something about it. The thing about me that you need to know, and you just need to understand this, because if you're going to be part of this church, you just got to know who I am, and I'm leading this thing, so this is what you're going to get. The thing about me that I love, and that some people love and some people hate, is a boldness that I have. And it's a boldness that's birthed from compassion and love. I told Vince, hey, I'm going to be the youth minister here. Most people don't say things like that. We're standing there with this homeless guy, and I just asked him, hey, what's your drug of choice? The reason is because what I learned from people who work with homeless people is that most homeless people have a drug addiction. Or if they didn't have a drug addiction, when they become homeless because they become hopeless, they develop a drug addiction. And so I just wanted to cut right to the heart of it. And so I just asked him, hey, what's your drug? Because this is the thing that's keeping you down. It's not serving you. So how do we fix it? Essentially what I was asking him is, do you want to get well? And are you willing to do what it takes to get well? The thing you need to know about me is I'm a bold person. And I cut right to the chase. I don't beat around the bushes. If there's something there, I'm going to pull it out, right? And this manifests itself in all kinds of different ways. I'll just give you some other examples. Like if I'm talking with somebody and they say, oh yeah, I'll try. Like I push back on that, right? Hey, are you gonna do this? Oh yeah, I'm gonna try to do that. Like I push back on that because for me the word try is a cuss word, right? Like if you say try, I'll just say, so are you or aren't you? Like, because oftentimes when you say try, it means no. Hey, are you coming to the picnic? Oh yeah, I'll try and make it. Okay, so that means no. Like that's just what I say. Most people say, oh okay, cool, yeah, I'll try and make it. No, I just respond and I say, okay, so that means no, right? Like just say no. Yes or no? It's do or do not. There is no try. Yoda said that?
Yeah.
Right? So I just push back on things like that. There's times where if I'm talking with somebody and they say, yeah, I want to get fit. Like I want to change my physique. I want to eat healthy. I want to get fit. I'm going to start going to the gym. All right, cool. That's awesome. And then a month later, if I talk to them, it's like, hey, have you been going to the gym? No, I haven't been going to the gym. You know, most people, regular people would say, oh, okay, well, okay, we'll try, try to go to the gym. Not me. Like, most people would say something like that. And so I would say, hey, are you going to the gym? And, oh, no, I can't, work and life, and it's so busy, and I don't really know what to do, and I get intimidated, and I'll just let them know, and I'll quote my friend Jeremy on this, I'll just let them know, hey, you are working out a muscle right now. But it's not a real muscle, it's an excuse muscle. So when are you going to stop working that excuse muscle and start working some real muscles? Because you said you wanted to get fit. You said you wanted to go to the gym. I'm just asking you about the thing you said you wanted. But I push back on it. Most people, regular people say, oh, okay, well, yeah, life is busy. That is right, I guess, maybe. No. And so this is just a thing about me. Like I don't beat around the bush. I cut right to the chase. And some of you are hearing this and you're like, I'm never telling you anything. I get it, right? But it's because I do this that people grow. It's because I'm willing to pull out what's in the darkness that people change. And so this is just the thing about me. But here's the thing. I didn't come up with this approach. Like, this isn't just me. Like, I developed this approach because I saw this approach from Jesus. Like, this is the approach that Jesus took one time in his ministry. And because he took this approach, a woman's life was forever changed. And I want to show you this moment in Jesus' ministry where he takes this approach and he gives this woman scandalous grace. That's the title for my sermon today, Scandalous Grace. Because grace is scandalous. I want to show you the definition of scandalous. Scandalous is this: is causing general public outrage by a perceived offense against morality or law. See, this approach of just calling something out, of just cutting right to the chase, it can be scandalous because it breaches the etiquette that we have with people. Like, we're going to tiptoe around that. And I want to say this too. When I'm talking about like just calling it out and saying something, I'm not talking, like some people say, I just tell it like it is. I just tell it like it is. No, you're a jerk. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about there's a way to tell it like it is. And people, I just tell it like it is. They don't have friends. Nobody wants to be their friend, right? And so if you're that person, you're wondering, how come nobody likes me? Stop telling it like it is. There's a way to tell it like it is in a hearable way. You gotta say it in a hearable way, in an empathetic way. So, and this is what Jesus says. But sometimes pushing back on the try, or pushing back on the excuses, or pushing back on the, and saying, listen, I believe that you can accomplish more. I believe there's more in store for you, and I want to help you discover the more that you were made for. That's why I do this, because I want people to see the potential that God placed in them, for them to then pull that out and live in that potential. And you'll never live in that potential as long as you keep making excuses, as long as you keep, no. So that's why I'm just there to be like, come on. Again, some of you are never going to tell me anything, right? But I'm just letting you know. So what happens is Jesus meets this woman, and he has this scandalous conversation with her. It breaches etiquette at the time. It could cause public outrage. His followers actually see him talking with this woman, and they're outraged by it. It's a scandalous conversation. But it's a scandalous conversation that leads to scandalous grace. And here's why grace is scandalous. Because grace is getting the opposite of what you deserve. Grace is scandalous because it's getting the opposite of what you deserve. Because you know this, you've experienced this, you felt this in your own life. You've done something wrong. You lied, you cheated, you stole, you gossiped, whatever it is, and you're ashamed of it, and you hide it in the shadows, and you think, there's no way anybody could love me. If God knew about this, he'd shun me. And so you shove it in the shadows, and you don't want anybody to know. Listen, the only way that you can get free from that is to pull what you've shoved in the shadows out into the light. And say, God, here it is. Here's this thing. And to bring people in on that, to confess that to other people so that they can help you, they can come alongside you, so that you can find that healing. Because what you deserve for what you did, whatever it is, and you can look back on it, you can think about it. There's things probably flooding your mind. The things that what you deserve is punishment. What you deserve is condemnation. What you deserve is a scolding. What you deserve is justice. But God comes along, and he gives you life. He gives you forgiveness. He gives you compassion. He gives you love. And that's the opposite of what you deserve. And that's scandalous. Because I don't deserve it. That's why it's grace. And there's nothing you can do to earn it. There's nothing you can do to work towards it. Because it's a gift. That's freely given. That's why it's so scandalous. And there's this woman who experiences this in John chapter 4, verse 1. Look at this. It says this. Jesus knew that the Pharisees had heard that he was baptizing and making more disciples than John, though Jesus himself didn't baptize them, his disciples did. So he left Judea and returned to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria on the way. He had to go through Samaria on the way. Except, he didn't. He didn't. Jesus didn't have to go through Samaria on the way to Galilee. See, the way the region is set up in Israel is like this. You get Judea down at the bottom, and then up above Judea is Galilee, and sandwiched in between Judea and Galilee is Samaria. And it said that Jesus had to go through Samaria. Now, it makes sense for Jesus to go through Samaria because it's the shortest route. It's just a straight line. But Jesus was Jewish, and good Jews don't go through Samaria. Good Jews go around Samaria. Because you know who lives in Samaria? Samaritans. And Samaritans are not like us. See, back then, there were people, try to imagine this. Try to imagine, back then, 2,000 years ago, there were people who hated other people because they were different from them. Like, I know it's a stretch. I mean, just really, really try to imagine a time where people would hate other people because they look different than them, because they think different than them, because they vote different than them. I mean, just imagine a world like that. There was a time, 2,000 years ago, where it was like that. and today. But Jews and Samaritans hated one another. And there's a long history there. And so let me tell you the history behind it. Here's why they hated one another. See, the nation of Israel was made up of 12 different tribes, just like this, and then it was divided into a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. The southern kingdom consisted of Judah and Simeon down at the bottom, and then the northern kingdom was all the other tribes up above that. Now, the capital of the southern kingdom was Jerusalem. The capital of the northern kingdom was Samaria. And in 722 BC, the Assyrians invaded northern Israel. And when they invaded Israel, they conquered Samaria, the capital. And when they did that, they deported people who lived there to other places of the Assyrian kingdom. And then they transported people from other places of the Assyrian kingdom into Samaria. You see it in 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 24. The king of Assyria transported groups of people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and resettled them in the towns of Samaria, replacing the people of Israel. They took possession of Samaria and lived in its towns. Now, this is a common practice for conquering nations to do, because what they would do is they'd take people who live in that area, put them somewhere else, put a bunch of other people who live from other areas, put them in this place, and when they do that, they water down the culture. They water down the identity of the people who are there. So now that Samaria is conquered, there's no rally cry of, let's go, we're Israelites, for Samaria! No, because there's all these other people from all these other regions now who are living there. And so they don't have an identity anymore. And the conquering kingdom, this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to remove the identity of the nation that they had conquered. And so there's all these other people now who are living in Samaria. And for the Jews who are still left in Samaria, they do something that God told them not to do. Deeper in the Old Testament, deeper in their history, there's a moment where God said, hey, don't do this. But they do it anyway. And what they do is they intermarry with the people who have been transported into Samaria. So God has told the people of Israel, hey, don't intermarry with other people. And there's a reason for it. It's not a racial reason. It's a religious reason. Because these people from other nations are worshiping other gods. Some of them are sacrificing their children to the gods. Some of them are engaging in temple prostitution. Some of them are all these different things. They're worshiping all these other gods. And God says, hey, don't intermarry with them. Because when you do that, what's going to happen is their religion, their beliefs are going to creep into your life, and it's going to lead you astray, and you're going to start worshiping these other gods. And what's going to happen is your relationship with me is going to get watered down. By the way, this is great advice for us today. If you're a Christian, you should not marry somebody who's not a Christian. It's going to cause problems for you. If you are not a Christian, you should not marry somebody who's a Christian. They are going to get on your nerves because they're going to want to bring you to church and you're not going to want to come. They're going to want to talk to you about Jesus and you're not going to want to hear about it, right? If you are a Christian, you should not marry somebody who is not a Christian because you're following Jesus and Jesus is leading you somewhere. But the person you share a life with, the person you share a bed with, the person you share everything with, you don't share this with them. And you feel so lonely. You feel so separated and disconnected. Because you're following Jesus. He's leading you somewhere. But they're not coming with you. Instead, what you want to do is both of you together want to walk together in the same direction because you're building a life together. And I'm saying this because I've talked to so many people who have done things their way instead of God's way and feel lonely, feel hurt. And there are so many women who just pray that their husbands would come to church. And what happens is their husband becomes an item on their prayer list. Men, please don't be an item on your wife's prayer list. Hey, would y'all just pray for my husband? I'm hoping he's going to come to church. man, please don't make your wife beg you to come to church, right? Like, you lead the way.
Yeah.
You step up and you say, come on, we're going.
Yeah.
Don't. So God says, hey, don't do that, because he cares for us. He desires what's best for us. And he knows the heartache and the hardship that comes from that. And so what happens, though, is the people of Israel, these Jews who are left in Samaria, they intermarry with these people from other nations. Again, it's not a racial thing. God has nothing against interracial marriage. It's a religious thing. Because he doesn't want them to fall. He doesn't want them to be watered down. He doesn't want them to follow other gods that aren't even real. He wants them to be close to him. And so what happens is they intermarry, and when they do that, they go against God's law, go against God's command, and the other Jews who hear about this and know about this look down on the Samaritans now because they compromised. I can't believe it. God said not to do that. You did it anyway. You're half-breeds. They look down on them. Like, Jews even called Samaritans dogs. They're like not worthy anymore. And so there's this hundreds of years like tension between the Jews and Samaritans because of this thing. But it said Jesus had to go through Samaria. Again, good Jews would avoid Samaria because they're half-breeds, they're dogs. Can't stand them. But Jesus had to go through Samaria on the way. And eventually, he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from the long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. The woman was surprised, for the Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You're a Jew. I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" Now, there's so many things in this passage right here that I just want to point out. First, we see that Jesus is tired from the walk. He wearily sits down. His disciples have gone into the village to buy some food, so Jesus is hungry. He's also thirsty, and he asks this woman for a drink. So what we see here in this passage is that Jesus is tired, he's weary, he's hungry, he's thirsty. And you felt those things, right? You've experienced those things because you're human. What we find in this passage is that, yes, Jesus was 100% God, but he was also 100% man. Jesus was a man. Tallahaganites. He was a man. He had a beard. Anyway, so Jesus was a real person. Sometimes we say, yeah, well, I'm not Jesus. He was perfect. Yeah, but Jesus was a real person just like you. Yeah, he's 100% God, but if you're a Christian, you have God living inside of you. His Spirit lives in you to empower you and equip you and help you. So sometimes we make this excuse, well, I'm not Jesus, I couldn't do that. Yeah, I know. But he got hungry. He got tired. He got thirsty. He knew what it was like to be a person because he was a person. And he felt all those things. Jesus was hangry. Right? Jesus had low blood sugar and could feel it. Jesus was tired, and he could have come up with an excuse to be cranky because he was tired, but he didn't. So he knows what you go through and what you experience. So we see that Jesus was a man, and he can identify and relate with us because he was fully human. But second is this woman comes to the well at noon, midday. And this is a time where women don't come to wells. Because noon, midday, is the hottest part of the day. And the women would come to the wells to draw water in the morning when it's cool. And they would come together for protection. And also kind of as a social gathering. But this woman is at this well in the middle of the day, alone, by herself, when the sun is up, the hottest part of the day. Why? Why is this woman alone? Why is she here, all by herself? It's because she's an outcast. She's looked down on. She's been shunned by society because she has a past. And she also has a present. She's not the best woman. She's been looking for love in all the wrong places. She would be labeled as a slut, a whore. She has a past and a present. Because of that, she's all alone. Nobody wants to be with her. Nobody wants to be her friend. She's down and out, an outcast. And that's why she's at this well by herself during the hottest part of the day. Because she's not good enough. She's too far gone. She's saying, save me. But nobody will. And then Jesus crashes into her. And it's fascinating too, what we see is that Jesus is talking to this woman. Again, this didn't happen back then. Men didn't talk to women in public like this. He's Jewish, she's Samaritan. He's talking to her. This doesn't happen. It's scandalous, this conversation that's taking place. And so what happens is Jesus asks a woman for a drink of water, and she says, why are you asking me? Why are you asking me for water? Again, Jews and Samaritans don't talk. Men and women don't talk in public like this. And here's this woman who's ashamed because of her past. And it's all under the surface. She doesn't know that Jesus knows because Jesus knows because he's God. But she doesn't know that. It's all under the surface. But her shame, her guilt is like shaping her life. So she's like, why are you asking me? And Jesus replied, if you only knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you'd ask me and I'd give you living water. So he says, hey, can I get some water? She said, why are you asking me? He said, hey, if you knew who I was and what I could give you, you'd be asking me for living water. And here's the boldness right here, right? Here's the boldness. Jesus is there with this woman and he says, hey, if you knew who I was, if you knew what I could offer you, you'd be asking me for living water. Bold. Normal people would have been like, oh, okay, well, can I still have a drink, ma'am? Not him. If you knew who I was, if you knew what I could offer you, you'd ask me for water. But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket, she said. And this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed? And Jesus replied, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give them will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. Please, sir, she said, give me this water, then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water. Jesus says, I got water that'll make you so you won't be thirsty again. She says, please, give me this water. And did you catch what she said? And I won't have to come here anymore. I won't have to come face to face with my shame anymore. I won't have to be alone anymore. I won't have to be reminded of who I am and what I've done. Can you give me this water? This is what she's begging for. Because every time she steals away to the well, and the sweat drenches her brow, and she looks around and she sees it's just her yet again. She's reminded of her brokenness, of her past, of her sin. She doesn't want to live that way anymore. So would you give me this living water so I don't have to keep being reminded of what I've done? John chapter 4, verse 16. Go and tell your husband, Jesus told her. Well, I don't have a husband, the woman replied. So, he's essentially, I'm going to give you this living water, but I want you to go and tell your husband. And the reason why Jesus says this is because a woman her age would have been married in this society and culture. If she's not married, there's something wrong there, or he's dead. So he says, go and get your husband. Now, Jesus already knows she's not married. But he says this because it's the boldness. Go get your husband. And she says, I don't have a husband. Now, most people would have said, I'm sorry. Okay, well, never mind then. Here's what Jesus says. Watch the boldness. Jesus said, you're right. You don't have a husband. For you have 5 husbands, And you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth. Boom! Boldness. Jesus says, you're right. Again, normal people would have said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I didn't know. No, Jesus says, you're right. You've had 5 husbands. And the guy you're with now, you're not even married. You told the truth. And here's what he tells her when he says that. And you got to see the moment. I just imagine Jesus is there and he looks her right in the eye. He says, you're right. You don't have a husband. The truth is you've been married 5 times. And the guy you're sleeping with right now, the guy you're living with, he's not your husband. Yeah, you're right. I think he says something like that. As he looks at this woman and he says this, here's what he's saying to her. I see you and I know you. I know you feel unlovable. And I know that's what you want most. You want to be loved. You want to be cherished. You want to know that you're good enough. You want to know that you have what it takes. Because you didn't get that from your dad growing up. You didn't feel loved by him, or he was too busy, or I don't know, but maybe that's it. Maybe you're longing for love and wanting to be loved because your dad never told you that you were lovable. So you're trying to find that in the arms of other men. Or maybe it was your mom and she was just controlling, or she didn't give you the love that you wanted or needed, and so you feel incomplete. And then that coupled with the time that you were at school, and then those kids said that thing about you, and they laughed, and for some people they would have brushed it off, but it's just become this like stabbing thorn in your side, and it's like that's who you are now, and it takes you back to that, or for those years that you were bullied, or for those years that people said these things about you, like all these things have stuck to you, and you just feel unlovable. And so you chased after that first man, hoping finally now I'll feel loved. Now I'll get everything I need. Now I'll get everything I want. Now I'll know that I'm good enough, but it didn't work out. You broke your heart. But you broke his. Because it wasn't what you thought it would be. You weren't fulfilled like you were looking for. So your second marriage was a second attempt to find the love that you longed for. There's a little girl inside of you, and you're trying to tell her you are loved. You're worthy. You matter. And you thought in the second marriage you'd be able to give that little girl what she needed, but that fell through. And then the third marriage, you're grasping at straws by that point. Fourth, fifth, and by the fourth and fifth, you just started to submit more what you felt about yourself, that you aren't worthy, that nobody could ever love you, because it's your fourth marriage. It's your fifth marriage. You started to wonder, what's wrong with me? Now the guy you're with, you don't even feel worthy to be married to him. And you've just been using your body, you've been using your bed, you've been using what you have to try and get what you need, but none of it has been working. So yeah, you're right. You've been married 5 times, and the guy you're with now is not your husband. How many of you know that this conversation with this woman at the well is not just about the woman at the well, but it's about you? It's about me. Because you and I share a similar story. And that we want to be loved. We want to know that we're lovable. We want to know that we're worthy. We want to know that we have what it takes. We want to know that we're good enough. Can I just tell you this morning, that Jesus looks at you as he looked at that woman,
I know you. I know your whole life. And you are good enough. And you do have what it takes. And this woman hears that, and she gets scared, I think, by the depth that Jesus dives into her life. She changes the subject, starts talking about some religious things. Jesus answers her questions. But then it said the woman left her water jar beside the well, ran back to the village telling everyone, "Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah?" She said, "He told me everything I ever did." But he didn't. He didn't tell her everything she ever did. He didn't say, "Oh yeah, there was that one time when you were 7 years old and you told that lie underneath the oak tree." Like, he doesn't say that. He doesn't go through that. He just says, "You've been married 5 times. The guy you're with now is your husband." In that statement, what he's saying to her is, I see you, and I know you, and I see the journey that you've been on to find love. It cuts right to the heart. The boldness there touches her heart like never before. And because of that, she receives this grace. Like, he knew retroactively, she's thinking, wait. He knows this about me. And yet, he still talked to me. He initiated the conversation. If he knew that about me, he still sought me out and talked to me. Her whole paradigm, like it all shatters because she's thinking, I'm unworthy, I'm lonely, I'm outcast, but this guy saw past all of that to offer me living water, to offer me something more. What happens is when this woman bumps into Jesus, she crashes into grace. And it changes everything for her. That's scandalous. That's scandalous. Scandalous is causing general public outrage by a perceived offense against morality or a law. See, this woman was shunned for a reason. She didn't deserve forgiveness because of all her failures, her flaws, and her shortcomings, but she received forgiveness anyway from Jesus because Jesus saw her. You remember when it said Jesus had to go through Samaria? You know why he had to go through Samaria? He could have gone around, but he had to go through Samaria because he had a divine appointment with this woman. She didn't know she was going to come into contact with the creator of the universe, but he knew. He knew he had to meet with this woman. He knew where she was going to be. He knew that she needed grace. He knew that she needed to be seen and told that she was loved. That's why he had to go through Samaria. You know why you're here today? You're not here by happenstance. You're not here because a friend brought you, or you got a mailer, or saw something on social media. You're here because God has a divine appointment with you today. You're here so that you could see that He sees you. And He calls you by name. And He loves you. He sees all the flaws, all the faults, all the failures, all the stuff you've shoved in the shadows. He sees it all. But He still looks at you with love and grace. And He calls you by name. And He calls you to more. You see that? Would you do me a favor? Would you just close your eyes? I want to ask you, with your eyes closed in faith, would you see the face of Jesus looking at you like He looked at the woman at the well? Knowing your shortcomings, knowing your shame, knowing your guilt, knowing all the things in your life that you just hide away. would you see Jesus look at you with eyes of grace and love, compassion, and forgiveness? Would you just see a smile come across his face as he delights in you, his son, his daughter? The woman said, he told me everything I ever did. Parentheses, but he still accepts me. You know, God expects more failure from you than you expect from yourself, and yet he still calls you by name. Would you see Jesus looking back at you, knowing everything you've ever done? Even the stuff you're doing right now, that you know isn't right, that you're ashamed of, you feel guilty about. He looks at you and he says, you're more than what you've done. You're my son. You're my daughter. And because of my sacrifice on the cross, I make you good enough. And I give you what you need. So, come to me for the living water that you need. Drink it up daily. Because I'm the only one who can quench your parched soul. What you did is not who you are. Who you are is forgiven. Because I've given grace. You know, we're about to remind ourselves of God's grace by observing communion. And you have cups on your chair. In those cups, there's bread. It reminds us of Jesus' body that was broken for us. There's juice. It reminds us of his blood that was shed for us. I want to invite you during this next song to take communion, but let it be a reminder to you that God looks at you and knows you. Says, even in spite of all you're ashamed of and all that you've done, I still went to the cross. So you don't have to live in that anymore. You don't have to live in that anymore. Next week, we're going to talk about what Jesus did on the cross. And I want to show you what Jesus went through for you and for me. I'm not driving nails through my wrists or anything like that. But I want you to see just what Jesus went through for you. Because he loves you that much. So make sure you're here next week. Make sure you bring somebody next week. But we'll just take a moment right now. If you haven't taken communion, go ahead. And just sit in silence. See Jesus as he looks back at you in delight. And I just want to have Amanda come and sing this chorus over you of Amazing Grace. We're not going to do the whole song like we practiced before. Just, could you sing these words of Amazing Grace? Would you just receive these words?
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now found. Was blind, but now I see.
And that's what's so amazing about grace. That's what's so amazing about grace. that God, like he sought that woman out, seeks you out so that you can be found, forgiven, have life. Man, would you take that with you as you go out this week? Would you just live in that grace this week? Would you give that grace to your spouse this week? Would you give that grace to your friends this week? Would you give that grace to yourself? Would you receive that grace for yourself? You're not what you did. Who you are is somebody made in God's image, made for more. And if you've never made the decision to say yes to Jesus, to be baptized into him, I want to invite you to do that today. In our app, you can just check the box, say that you want to get baptized. If you got questions about baptism, we want to answer those questions for you. You can stop by and see somebody in a blue hoodie on our guide team, and they can explain to you any questions about baptism. And but today's the day. Hey, I want to pray for us one more time, and then we'll dismiss you. Can't wait to see you next week. God, thank you so much for your love and grace and mercy. Would you remind us that you are so good, and you know us, you see us, and you love us. And so God, help us live in freedom, where we don't live in the shadow of our sin anymore, but we live knowing you've seen everything in our life, and you still accept us and embrace us. And that's good news. And that's what's so amazing about grace. So God, thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Hey, thank you so much for being here. We can't wait to see you next week. Take it easy.
1, 2, 3.